Hello, hello. This is Danielle Ireland, and you are catching an episode of Don't Cut Your Own Bangs, the remedy for comparison and feeling like everyone has life figured out but you. And today's guest is a really special repeat guest. When I decided to take the audio format of the podcast and move it into video, it was suggested to me by a very credible source that I pare down the bank of episodes that I have to my top 50 downloads. And today's guest was in that top 50, Asia Coffee. She is an award-winning cake artist, cake decorator. She was on season 3 of Food Network's Holiday Wars, and she shares her passion and artistry for cake baking and helping add value to anyone's life at any stage of baking that wants to improve, learn, and grow, and just continue to enjoy all of the beauty of baking. That episode, the original episode I had with Asia, we looked back in the archives before we actually started recording our episode today, and she was a guest on July 28th of 2020. Since then, I've made 2 humans. Life has had a lot of twists and turns. We've had a global pandemic, and Asia has hit some incredible milestones in her career, all of which we talk about and really flesh out in the episode. If you have ever considered yourself maybe an imposter, like you don't belong, do I really deserve to be here? Is it too late for me to get started? How long is too long before I need to abandon a goal and try something else? These are themes that she touches on in a way that I have found is just so beautiful to Asia. She has this gift, truly, and I recommend everybody who's not already subscribe to her YouTube channel, follow her on social media. The artistry, it's one thing to say it, it's another to see it. And I have the benefit of seeing her beautiful work. I've also consumed her beautiful work because her art is something you eat and digest, which is just incredible to me, which we also talk about in the episode. But she has this balance of the desire to execute at the highest level in the areas of her work that she has influence and control. So when she is actually approaching a cake or approaching something that she wants to make, she's going to do everything she can to make the thing she makes to the highest degree it can be. And then, in terms of how it's received, how it's packaged, then she surrenders and lets it go. And it's one of the mentally healthiest processes with approaching creativity and work that I've seen in a really, really long time. This episode feels like a breath of fresh air. So if you're looking for a little inspiration, looking for something sweet, and wanting to learn how to make space for big feelings, this is a good episode for you. Get ready to sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode with Asia Coffee. Asia Coffee, welcome back. You are the first guest that I've had on since relaunching the podcast into video. You were like one of the OG guests for me when this was just audio way back in the day. And when I say way back in the day, we looked it up right before pressing record. July 28th, 2020 was when we recorded our first episode. You were like making cakes, you were teaching classes, you had been on the TV show. But since then, 5 years, 5 years since then, I've had 2 children. You've hit some incredible milestones in your business that we're going to talk about, and a lot of life has happened. So I'm so excited to have you back.
Well,
Thank you for being
for
here,
having me.
Asia.
I am so excited to be back, and I'm super excited to hear that I am your first guest that has joined you on the newer podcast. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I have to say, like, one of the things I remember loving about talking to you the first time, and as I've been refreshing myself on your recent content and how it's grown, there is such a sincerity and sweetness to you. And I mean sweetness literally, and also with regard to the sweet treat that you make and help others make. But there's such a genuine sweetness to you that was so present and so genuine back 5 years ago when we originally recorded. And I just love seeing that as your business and your success has continued to grow. It's as soon as I heard your voice again, I just felt it again. And so I just want to start off by saying, good on you. You're just so
Well,
sweet.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so okay. So let's get into it. So you are an award-winning cake artist, you're a cake decorating instructor, YouTube content creator that let me just flash forward to something we are going to talk about. You hit 100,000
Yeah.
subscribers on YouTube. Um, so just I mean, it's taken off. I mean, I remember seeing the early videos. You appeared on season 3 of Food Network's Holiday Wars, and you share your passion for cake baking and cake artistry through teaching in-person and virtual classes. And yeah. Oh, and you also volunteer for Sugar Angel and
Yeah.
Icing for Smiles. I wanna know more about that. I
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
wanna learn more about that. But, I am just so excited to highlight your beautiful work and invite the Don't Cut Your Own Bangs listeners to you that maybe didn't meet you the first time, and or welcome back people who fell in love with you from way
Oh, well,
back in the
I'm
day.
so
'Cause
happy to just be back in general, and being able to share my story and where things have gone since we last talked. I do want to go back to the last point you made about volunteering with Icing Smiles, and as you mentioned, I am a sugar angel with that organization, and for split second in time, I did a stint managing some of their social media content on Instagram and Facebook. But I got into that and then
nice.
got a little overloaded and kinda backed out of that a bit, but I remain active with the organization, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful organization. Just to give a little bit of background, it is almost the equivalent of Make-A-Wish for a child, but it's cakes, and they also have cookies and cupcakes as well. So, the aim of the organization is to provide, celebration cakes for families with a child that has very serious illness. Not only do the Sugar Angels, which I am a Sugar Angel, provide cakes for the child, they also provide cakes for siblings of the children as well. And so, as a sugar angel, at this point in time, I've made 5 cakes for the organization over the last few years, and it's been a wonderful experience, and I really can get behind the mission of the organization. I think it's great. It's one of my favorite things to do. So I absolutely love and enjoy doing that. Uh,
And what a sweet way, and I'm probably I can already feel I'm probably gonna overuse that word, so I may edit out some of the times that I say it. Um, but what a thoughtful and creative way to show up for children and for families and for siblings of littles who are going through medically
yes.
complex challenges. I mean, I think there's so many needs to be met, and I've had the good fortune actually in the last month of introduce or interviewing Dr. Tasha Faruqi, who is a pediatrician who actually has a child in palliative care who's experienced Make-A-Wish, and she's a strong advocate and fundraiser for Make-A-Wish, as well as Jordan Arrighetti from Support Now, which is a essentially it's a virtual wraparound service to help families and people who are loving and supporting individuals who are going through really challenging life altering, whether it's a diagnosis or a natural disaster, find support. I'm just continually impressed by you can show up in whatever
Yeah.
way you know how, and that is meaningful. And so your gift and your art and the beauty you're bringing into the
Yes.
world is cakes or and and baking and thinking of offering up love and generosity in that way. That's so beautiful. I'll make sure to link in the show notes because I mean there's lots of ways that people can connect with you that are already available in the show notes, but I'll make sure to include that organization as well. So if anybody wants to either get involved, has a passion for baking too, and would love to donate, or I'm sure there's other ways to give back. But
Oh,
thank you for
yes,
highlighting that.
definitely, my pleasure, and,
So
if there's anyone who may be interested because they love to bake or they are cake artist, cake decorator, the organization's always looking for sugar angels in any area, no matter if it's in the city, the state. This is a nationwide organization. So they're also in need of sugar angels to create cakes. And then also anyone who's willing to support the organization would be great too. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's just I I think that's one of the things when the work that I do as a therapist, it's this is an expression and a way of showing up that makes sense for me in my life and my my gifts or my interests, and so anytime I get to see how other people find their own way of doing that, it's so beautiful. But let's go to, if it's okay, I'd love to shift to July 28th, 2020. Asia was a mother, wife, baker, and she had goals, she had aspirations, and today in August 2025, um, you've hit some major milestones. So I would love to, if you, I mean, not that I, can you just make a brief synopsis of the last 5 years for
Yes.
me? But can you just catch me up a little bit on like, what are some of the things when you think about the last 5 years and what's grown, what's changed,
Oh,
what's
yeah. So
evolved for
thinking
you?
back to July of 2020,
Mhm.
so much has changed. The first thing I will say and talk about is where I was like mentally in 2020 as far as what I wanted to do with my cake decorating business and what I knew I wanted to do and what my
Right.
goals were then and there. I would say around the end of 2019, I made the decision to really stay consistent on YouTube. I posted my first YouTube video, if I'm recalling correctly, in 2011. Posted the video, didn't have any thoughts or goals around what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I learned how to do a really neat technique. I filmed myself doing that technique and I just wanted to share it with as many people as I could. So from
Sure.
2011 up until the end of 2019, I hadn't even posted probably 5 videos to my channel. But at the end of 2019, I decided that once and for all, I am going to go all in, full in, making cake decorating related content and posting it every 2 weeks and try to stick to that schedule. So, as everyone all knows what happened in 2020, uh,
Yeah, but you say that though, and I think that there is this almost collective memory loss that we have where like, well, no, it
yeah,
couldn't have been 5 years, it's only been
exactly,
3 years, but I think we just time was compressed and stretched in such
exactly.
weird ways. But please, yeah, but yeah, so
Yes,
COVID happened.
yes.
And
So, with
yes.
that, I, kept going. I would say that with everything happening around that time, it made things a lot easier for me to stay consistent because I was filming my content at home using my cell phone. I still to this day use my cell phone to film my content. One little tidbit there. But at that time, I was
Nice.
just trying to stay consistent with everything and just make sure I posted and stuck to my posting schedule. I would say between 2020 and 2021 is where my YouTube channel saw the most growth. I was getting tons and tons of subscribers, like comments, people just really engaging with the content, and it was fantastic. It was a goal of mine just to reach more people because one thing that
Mhm.
I've learned over the last couple of years is I've had this fortune of realizing that one of my superpowers, and it's almost I want to say one of my life aspirations is to teach and be a teacher. And as I kind of look back over my
Yeah.
life, there have been situations where I found myself in a teaching role, showing people how to do something, whether it's cake decorating or how to knit or how to speak Spanish, just basic Spanish. I've always been teaching something. So being able to teach cake decorating in this way and share videos on YouTube, which, as everyone knows, is a worldwide audience, It's just been an incredible experience because I'm learning things about how baking works and certain ingredients and certain things, for from overseas and around the world, things that people do in other countries and cities and states and just anywhere.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to pause you just for a moment because
yep,
something really piqued my interest when you talked about you're like between 2020 and 21, or was it 2019 and 2020, you
sorry.
decided, oh,
Yeah.
hello, Siren. No, don't be sorry. You can't, yeah, you can't help that.
Okay.
We're
Yeah,
recording in real life.
it's gone
So,
away now.
but perfect. But I really want to go back to when you said, I decided to
Mhm.
go all in and I committed to every 2 weeks, I was going to post a video. And you wanted to reach more people. I'd love to zero in a little bit on what was there a strategy? Was there a commitment you made? Was there a process you followed to how did you when you decided my goal was to reach more people, what did you do to execute that
So when
vision?
I decided on that goal, the crazy thing is when I look back and think about it, I didn't really have a plan other than I had to get a video out every other Friday. So in hindsight and how I have changed and shifted the way that I do things strategically now is very different from how I looked at it back in 2020, 2021, to where it was like, I'm
Mhm.
filming, I'm editing, I'm putting it out. Filming, edit, put out. Filming, edit, put out. It's just the whole process. Um, and just making sure that I hit that every other Friday. And I had a situation wherein I believe March of 2020, my computer that I used to edit like completely went down for a couple weeks. So I said, you know what? I have editing software on my phone. So I have a couple of videos on my channel where the quality isn't the greatest, but I said, you know what? I'm just going to put it out here. I'm not going to stop myself and say, just because it's not
Yeah.
perfect, I'm not going to put it out there. So it's a lot of getting out of my
Mm,
own head about uh, being consistent on providing value to other people, as opposed to being thinking about it
mhm.
selfishly and saying, oh, well, since this doesn't look a certain way, I'm just not going to put it out there. Um,
I've
mhm.
never thought of it like that. That and it oh man, I'm getting full body chills. I
Yep,
never thought of it that way, that voice in your head, the perfectionist, is really trying to protect you from having to experience, whatever that the discomfort is or the perceived, like the worry of how you might be judged and and I never thought of that as
exactly. Yep,
selfish.
yep,
And getting out of your own way and just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna show up imperfectly because that's what I've
exactly.
committed to do."
Exactly, and I had to do
Wow.
that in that
Wow.
moment. Now, and I will say, over the years, I have it's very rare, but it does happen, in terms of being on YouTube or creating any kind of content. There's the video component to it, and then there's also the audio component to it. One thing that I, like to do in my videos is I like to put music in the video just to kinda help with the energy, because I don't see myself as a very high energy person necessarily. Uh, but rarely it happens. I'll get people who comment and say, "Oh, this music is too upbeat," or "The music is a little too loud," so I've turned it down, but I try to make sure things are not necessarily perfect, but they're good enough, and that first and foremost, I'm providing as much value to someone looking for the kind of content, how to separate an egg whites from the egg yolk. Someone can click on the video, watch, get the information they need, and hopefully they subscribe. If they don't, that's fine, but I'm always here for anyone who needs help with anything.
Yeah. So, it sounds like in the beginning, you didn't really
Yep.
have a strategy beyond, "I'm committing to the process." And how did that how did that trajectory work? Like, I mean, obviously, you're
Yes.
sitting here today, and you've got that beautiful plaque from YouTube, that you've hit 100,000 subscribers, but was it slow to start, or did it feel inconsistent? Like, it's almost kind of like you were out at sea. What did
So,
that feel
I
like?
just kind of went forward and kept going. I think a big part of it for me, even now, is just letting go of the expectation. I will say, in terms of my channel and the niche that I'm in, food related content, there are some things, there are ups and downs that have to do with seasonality. Of course, I get a lot of views around Thanksgiving, around the holidays. One thing that just recently happened with everyone kind of going back to school and the summer ending is I've seen a few drops in my viewership, but again, it's that seasonality of people are doing other things, and they're not necessarily focusing on baking and cake decorating. So letting go of the expectation that a video or reel or short is going to go viral, because that has yet to happen for me. I have some videos with some great views, but for the most part, it takes most of my videos about 4 to 6 months to actually gain traction. Yeah, I'm being very serious.
That is
Yes.
That's fascinating. And for anyone listening who maybe is not in the content creating space, who like when she says when Asia says that there's a dip here or a slow to build, I just want to put some numbers out there to just to really highlight what you're talking about. Like, oh, I've seen some dips. So there's a video, instantly make them better, 5 mistakes to avoid before decorating your cake, has over
Yeah.
1.2 million views. Okay, so like that's the tide pool that Asia's, swimming in. And or let's see. Oh, okay, her YouTube channel has received over uh wait, 4.5 million views and over
Yep.
100,000 total subscribers. So that's so I just want to put that into context because as you're saying, like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's some dips. Like the dips are like
Yeah.
10 to 2. I mean, but I'm sure though, as you have, it sounds like your growth has been almost kind of like slow
It
and steady
is,
wins the
yes.
race. And so I would imagine as you sort of acclimate or assimilate to each new summit that you reach, you're probably feeling and experiencing it in a very
Exactly.
similar way because it's not all at once. But I would love to, if it's all right. Um, can you tell me more about
Yep.
as much as you can recall that journey? Because everybody starts somewhere. And so if anyone listening is, whether it's a creative endeavor or starting a new relationship, in any sense where you're starting over again, I'd love to bring the conversation back briefly to what was it like for you going from like 0 to 100? Because that's the seed I'm in. Right, because I didn't have a YouTube presence. I
Yep.
had a podcast presence, but I didn't have a YouTube presence, and so I definitely feel I'm feeling very tender, very amateur hour,
Yep.
but that's okay, you gotta start somewhere. But 0 to 100, 100 to 100,000, I wanna take those leaps with you
Yes.
if we can go
So
back.
0 to 0 to 100. At that point, I posted one video and I just let it sit. No expectations, no nothing. All I knew was that I learned a neat technique, wanted to record myself doing it, do a little bit of voiceover, put it up, and I just let it sit. What really kind of piqued my interest was that people enjoyed the video. Mind you, this is my first video, so very poor quality video, very poor quality audio. I think a lot of the video was actually recorded in vertical, which was not hot at the time. So it's just
Oh my
looking
god.
back on that, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I did that wrong," but whatever, I put it out there. So I was more so in the mindset of if they come and watch and enjoy, that's fine. If they come and watch and don't enjoy, that's fine. And then I really started paying attention to, um, the channel when I got closer to about 300 subscribers or 500 subscribers. At that point, I had really only posted a couple videos and let them sit. So again, when I say that it takes, several months for a video of mine to actually get some traction, it's just myself being patient and just letting things sit, letting the platforms or the algorithms do what they need to do to reach the people who were actually enjoying and getting value from the content. Um, so from there and actually seeing the numbers, seeing those numbers and knowing that, okay, I put out these videos and the audio's not great. The video itself isn't the most fantastic or cinematic thing out there. That people I'm still
Sure.
providing, value to people. And the fact that that was happening really kind of propelled me to do more and to really sit down and say, "Okay, I'm gonna go in and be consistent with this and just keep going." So, it started off as, "Oh, ho hum, I posted this video. Oh, okay, people are interested, that's fine." And then the next step was, "Oh, okay, maybe I got something here, and maybe I can do some more stuff that maybe people would like." And then actually doing that, and then the next step for me was saying, "Okay, I'm really gonna buckle down and actually do this and be consistent." And Danielle, actually, now that I think about it, right the time that we recorded, the first podcast, if I'm remembering correctly, and I think this is right, I had just hit 1,000 subscribers. I hit it, I believe, on July 3rd or 4th in 2020. I think I had
Whoa, so this is like a
Yes,
real bookend.
I think I had just hit 1,000
Wow.
subscribers. Um,
Oh,
and that's kind of a
wow.
milestone in and of itself on YouTube. For yeah,
I bet.
um, so yeah, that was getting to 1,000 was really exciting, and I didn't realize that it would take about 5 years to get to 100,000. Um, but in between getting that 1,000 and 100,000, so much has happened. And there's been times where I hadn't been consistent. There were times where I felt like I wanted to give up. There were times where um, I had scheduled to do live streams and did them. Only three people showed up. Scheduled to do time live streams and had some personal things come up in life, and I had to cancel and hadn't done a live stream since then. But just experimenting with content and just trying to see what works and what provides the most value to people.
So, two things are, I think, becoming more and more clear to me as you're talking about what the journey of the last 5 years has been. One was not feeling so attached to the outcome and letting yourself try. And the other
Exactly.
is value. How can I be of service? How can I be of service? And it reminds me of something I used to say to myself back in the days when I would either do like performance and dance or performance on stage or even like a live speaking event, that my
Mhm.
nerves are about me. So if I focus on letting it not be about me and being of service, those
Yep.
nerves really dissipate. Because once I'm focused on what I'm actually there to do, it's not about me anymore. So I really appreciate hearing you say that. And I I'm actually really interested because again, this next comment, this is, I think, what I really would love to invite people to do that are not already following you on social media, on Instagram, all of which, by the way, are linked in the show notes, or haven't seen your YouTube videos. The artistry, the execution, the beauty in the cakes you make. I have commissioned your work before. It is what you make is so exquisite, and, something that's coming to mind, and this is probably gonna be an older cake for you, but you made a birthday cake for your son. I'm trying to remember if he was turning 4 or 5, but you made, like, a
Oh,
you made a
yeah,
stack of
yeah.
pancakes. So it looks like a stack of pancakes with, like, maple syrup and melted butter, but it's a cake, and these
Yes.
illusion cakes. I mean, the the level of precision and artistry and execution, and now it's coming back to me. I know that it's something that I asked you back in our original interview was, what's it like to create something so beautiful for it to be consumed? It's almost like making a sandcastle, and that blew me away because it's, other than the image, it's not preserved. But to go back to this relationship with you, the relationship you seem to have with, like, I'm gonna put it out there. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect, but you you seem to have these 2 different sides of you. One is, it is going to be executed flawlessly to the highest artist integrity. And then in this other space that's not making cake, but making content or teaching about cake, you're kind of like, well, I guess how do you balance that part of
That
you
is a
that wants to execute at such a high level? And also it's like, well,
yes,
it is what
yes,
it
no,
is.
and so funny that you bring this up because I actually thought about this morning. Like, my life in general, there's so much duality and balance in terms of how I do things. I will say when I make a cake, there's a lot within that process that I can control. Um, Whereas if I am like teaching a class, there is a degree to where I can control things, or if I'm filming content, there is a degree to which I can control things. But half of it, I would say 50% of when I'm creating content or I'm teaching a class, there's so much more interaction in terms of working with other people to where I can't control the outcomes 1,000% with that. Whereas I have a lot more control if I'm in the act of the creative endeavor, as opposed to putting something together for someone else to turn around and create their own creative endeavor. And in a sense, it's more so like a letting go. I let go of myself so that I could give the most important parts to other people so that they can take that seed, plant it within their own mind and their own experience and create for themselves. So it's just a different way that I look at it. Whereas I can be more focused, like 1,000% into something, and then on the other end where there's other people involved, I can focus but not be completely focused because the goal is really for that other person.
I was a
So
student just then. I was a student in the School of Asia Coffee, and that was so it was the takeaway that I'm gonna leave with. I don't think I can quote what you said exactly back, but the takeaway that is so true, and I find the
mhm,
best lessons bear repeating. You just said it in a different way that I needed to hear, and I hope anyone listening is hearing this too, that you are focusing your energy when you're trying to execute at the highest level. It's where do I have the most influence and control? And for the elements that are not within your control, there's this relationship, this beautiful relationship
mhm,
you have with surrender. It's like when I'm making the cake, that is my zone. I know how to
yep,
show up in this zone. And then what other people do with that information, that's not really about
exactly.
me anymore. So you can, wow, that is
Yeah,
one that's so healthy. That is so mentally healthy. So gold star, mental health gold star. But that's also just such a great reminder, not just for a creative, but for anything that reminds me of feedback I actually gave a client who they had an aha in a therapy session, and they almost always what happens when somebody has like a connection or an aha is it shifts from this sense of relief of, oh, I have this new sense of clarity now, and then, oh man, now I have to bring this information into the world and I have to communicate it somehow. And so much I think of the stress or angst or what people might say is like a fear of confrontation in that is really they're trying to anticipate, control, or manage how the other person
exactly.
receives it versus what I have control or the greatest influence on is showing up with an open heart, with curiosity, with vulnerability, and with clarity. That's where I have influence. That's where I have the most power. And the vulnerable part is letting that go to be interpreted, received, liked, disliked, dismissed,
Yep,
ignored, or embraced. That's the vulnerable part, is the part
exactly.
you can't control. So, wisdom through cake, wisdom through cakes. Man, that is so
Yeah, sure
good. Thank you
thing.
for that. What keeps you inspired to
Oh,
keep
wow.
creating?
I would say probably the number one thing that keeps me inspired to create is just knowing that I'm helping other people and just anyone, anywhere. My content on YouTube and when I teach my classes, everything that I know and that I'm teaching and I'm willing to share anything I know. It's meant for everyone, no matter where they are in their cake decorating journey, no matter if they've never made a cake before and they're doing it for the first time, or they've made thousands of cakes and they just can't get this one technique down right and they're looking for answers. I am here for anyone and everyone who is looking for answers. So knowing that and knowing that my content is valuable to someone out there, many people out there, I would hope, is what keeps me creating and wanting to share. So I would say that's the
Mhm.
gasoline that powers my vehicle.
That's so beautiful. Gosh, what a beautiful answer. It's something that just occurred to me that's not in my notes. Have you made anything really incredible or beautiful or delicious for your family lately? Because again, like I think it was when I thought about that cake you made for your son's birthday. It made me wonder, what are they
Yes,
eating now? What are they loving now? Because
yes,
they're 5
yes,
years older.
exactly. So as the years have gone by, and then there's been some challenges with that too that I'll touch on a little bit. So as you know, I was on TV, I was on a Food Network TV show, and I hit a low point after the show. And it's something that I touch on one of my YouTube videos, and it's very briefly that I just touch on it, and I haven't had people comment on it. But being on a television show and being in the national spotlight and being known locally a bit, it really impacted my confidence and my skills or how I felt about my skill. Um, any cake that I made in 2022, I felt like that cake was not good enough. And it was the thought of, hey, I was on this TV show and I was with this group of people and we made amazing cakes and we did fantastic things. And now I'm back home and I just don't have it. That was the feeling that I had. And for about a year and a half, I was in a slump and in a low point. And during that time, as I was making things at home for my family, I would start out with these big ideas of things I wanted to do. And over the years, I realized that sometimes my boys didn't want that, or so my family members didn't want that kind of stuff. So I would say maybe in the last couple of years, I have made some pretty delicious things that were the goal of those things were to be delicious, not necessarily fantastical to look at, but absolutely delicious. And I'm smiling because over the weekend, we have a peach tree at home and the peaches are ready. They're just ready to go. We picked the peaches and I made peach cobbler over the weekend and like everyone at home was so excited about it. But just baking and making things that don't necessarily look fantastical or over the top, but just getting back to basics and learning more about basic baking and honing those baking skills at home has just been my focus. So that's what we're eating at the coffee house.
At the coffee house. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer and for that vulnerability. There's been two major places where I've really related to things that you've said, and have even through the specificity of your experience, I've seen myself in it. Earlier this year, I believe it was back in May, the podcast was mentioned briefly, but it was highlighted on the Today Show. There's been a couple of times in my life where I've been surprised by something beautiful to the point of ugly crying. Like, one was when my husband proposed, the other was when he threw me a surprise birthday party. And I think at its core, what part of what that sense of overwhelm is, I think not all, but there's this little almost like swirl of
Yes.
color in the frosting of, am I
Mhm.
do I deserve this? Am I worthy of this? And it's like equal parts so grateful and wanting that very thing that has happened. And then also doubting somewhere in some way that I am
Yep.
worthy of holding it. And I'm not super proud to admit that, but it's true. And so as you're talking about what 2022 and the aftermath was like, I feel in many ways that's probably an accurate reflection of where I am. I'm wanting to meet this moment. I'm wanting to show up in a way that says, yes, I do. Yes, I can. Yes, I will. And all the while, there is this thread in this moment too of,
Yeah,
can I do this? Can she do this? And seeing where you're seated in yourself now, 3 years after, that gives me a lot of comfort and a lot of hope. So I just appreciate you sharing that so much. And the other is when you going back just a few moments ago when you were talking about you started the YouTube channel not with the intention or some grand ambition. You started it with a desire just to highlight something that benefited you. And then discovered, I think
yeah,
this can be something. And you allowed that to mature and nurture and just allowed it to be. And everything about that you feel certainly a couple of few years ahead of where I'm at, but I see myself in your journey and it's a real light for me. It's a real guiding light. Just want to say thank
of
you
course.
for that. And I want to ask you now too, what challenges are you facing now? And so on the flip end of that question, what's easier for you now?
Those are fantastic questions.
Oh, thank you.
Easier for me, now where I am in that whole process, and it is a journey. Easier for me now is giving myself grace and knowing that I don't have to go into anything, not just a cake design or anything in life, just expecting to do top of the line all the time. And just giving myself grace and knowing that, okay, I can do hard things, number one, and also stopping to check in with myself to see how hard do I want to make things for myself.
Oh, hold, wait. Oh, I gotta sit with that. I can do hard things. And how hard do I want to make things? Oh, that is like
Yeah.
the takeaway of takeaways. Yes, you can. And how hard do you
Yes.
really want to make it?
Yes. Yeah,
Please continue.
definitely.
That was amazing.
And so just going back to cakes and things at home, in the last few years, there have been some fantastical cakes here and there, but there also have been times where I've said, okay, we're getting ice cream cake from Ritter's. What flavor do you want?
What's-
What flavor do you want? And I make that order, go pick up the ice cream cake, and we sing happy birthday, and we just go from there. So again, just allowing myself grace and knowing that it doesn't have to be 1,000% or just high, just the top of the top every time. Um, and just managing expectations as well. So that's where I am with that. The one thing that I would say is s- still a challenge is knowing where to go from here. Of course, I've had a lot of growth in terms of my content. Specifically this year in 2025, I have made the decision not to teach cake decorating classes this year. I do have a preview class coming up here in the next few weeks, which is meant to be a preview of how the cake decorating beginners classes are going to be held, the in-person classes for 2026. But I specifically took this year off to try to reorganize some things, focus on some things that I hadn't focused on previously, but had made a plan to. Just recalibrating and being intentional about where I want to go from here. I would say that has been somewhat of a challenge because all of us, I get distracted, I procrastinate. It's a part of life. Just having an idea, sitting down, seeing how feasible things are, and then making a plan to work from this point. That still continues to be a challenge, but it's a journey that I'm on and just trying to make progress toward.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. Thinking about Asia coffee
Yeah.
today at the coffee house and then thinking about the Asia that I got to sit down and talk to July 28th, 2020. Was there anything that your former self from 5 years ago needed to hear or needed to believe, or anything that would have been helpful to her that you feel like you could, knowing what you know now, you could have said then? Because there are moments where I'm trying to look back on earlier versions of myself and find ways to thank me. Oh, thank you for taking that off my plate so I didn't have to juggle too much today. Or thank you for fitting that workout in the morning because I am so tired now at 4 o'clock and it's just not going to happen. That's a new way that I've been offering grace and love and just nurturing myself in a new way. Because I think sometimes I can look back on previous versions of myself and cringe, like fashion trends change, hair trends change. I didn't know as much then as I know now. And so I'm trying not to be so
Yeah.
embarrassed by former versions of myself. But when you look back at yourself 5 years ago, what do you think that version of you really needed
I
to
think
hear?
that version of me from 2020 needed to hear that the best is yet to come and to keep going because things will change, but they will change for the better. Like thinking back to 2020, I would have never in a million years thought that number one, I would be on a TV show. Right. And then I want to give a little context to that too, because being a cake artist, cake decorating instructor, it's not it is my business, but it's not what I am classically trained to do. So for a long time, it was a side venture that I did several years ago. I did make an official business out of it, and that business continues to grow. So I have a different background from what most people in my niche or in my area would be. Like when I grew up, I wasn't baking with anybody. I learned cake decorating and baking when my oldest son was 7 years old. So that was in the recent time. It's not something I've been doing for decades necessarily. So one, I never thought in a million years I would be on TV. Number two, never thought in a million years that I would have a growing YouTube channel and that I would be over 100,000 subscribers at this point. And there's a lot. I mean, those are just a couple things, but I feel like it's going
Yeah.
to continue to get better as long as I continue to be patient and remember the why of what motivates me. And that is providing value to people through my content and helping them as I can.
Wow. It's wise, it's hopeful, but it's also true. And it seems like the wisdom you have for yourself
Mhm.
for 5 years ago, I would have to imagine that'll be a very similar experience you have 5 years from now. The best is yet to come. Like, you think this is good?
I
Just
hope so.
wait. Right. Yes, I feel it. And again, another way that I can absolutely relate to you, I was a theater kid turned ballroom dance teacher who got my master's late in life. I mean, at least that's how I felt when I was 29 and 30 going back to school to get all my prereqs to even apply for my graduate program. I think anytime I can hear any iteration of "Hmm, I started late or this didn't turn out the way I thought,
Yep,
but somehow I still landed here," that soothes my soul.
exactly.
That's so
Exactly.
helpful to hear.
I think it's
So
important
helpful.
for people to know that no matter where you are in life, you can do a complete 180 or a 135.
Uh,
Like, as long as you start, you will end up being somewhere doing that one thing that you never thought that you could do.
as long as you start, you'll end up somewhere. God, that feels like that needs to be like a children's book. I don't know if but I actually wrote a children's book and I published it this year. And I swear, Asia, like your artistry and your voice and being a mom, I don't know if you've ever put that on your list of things as like a future goal, but man, that what
Wow.
wisdom.
It's interesting that because for at least a year, I've been thinking I want to write a book, but I feel like it doesn't need to be a cake decorating book. So it's so interesting that you're saying that.
Mhm. Chills, tingles all up and down my legs. Oh, man. Okay. If this is a you got it here first moment, when this episode airs, listen back to your own words because I think that you have said a number of things that could make for a really impactful story, however you choose to package it. Thank you for sharing that. And maybe I hope that synchronicity maybe sparks something for
Yeah.
you. And maybe we'll have to have a
Uh,
follow-up podcast
oh,
when you're
yes.
launching your book. I feel like we're at the point now, Asia, where I would love to invite and ask you to share if you have a don't cut your own bang moment for round two.
Okay. Don't cut your own bang moment.
Well, it's gonna
Um,
be good, I can tell.
I will tell you that, and I've mentioned it a couple times, being on the television show. I've learned so much and got so much out of that experience. And I will say that being a part of that experience was really eye-opening. First of all, I never worked on a team, the group of 2 other very talented cake artists and bakers. And being the odd woman out was a different experience because, again, late in life, I didn't come into the competition with being someone who worked at a bakery or being someone who was in this and woke up early and did all these things. I came from just a different environment. And I was really inspired by my teammates to take what I was doing and what I had learned in a different direction. And so there were some very kind words that my teammate who has her own bakery in Wisconsin, had said to me, she expressed that she thought I was very talented. And really up until that point, many people had said that to me, but to know that I was on a team with this individual and she had expressed that, and she herself has her own bakery and does a beautiful work and had been on previous shows, that really impacted me to want to dig deeper and dive deeper into actually baking. So up until that point, my focus had been cake decorating. But over the last few years, I've gone more into baking and learning those kinds of things. So, all of this to say, just that whole experience of just seeing things from a different perspective had got me to the point of thinking, okay, there is more here. And don't sell yourself short. You're great at doing one thing, but you could become really great at doing another thing. To just take that opportunity, take the learning experience and make it work for you. And don't try to sell yourself short.
Ooh, don't try
Yeah.
to sell yourself short. So, somebody who is an expert in their own right and in their own way saw you as a peer and saw the potential in you to go further. That is a really great
Yeah.
don't cut your own bang moment because I think that when we imagine holding or navigating big experiences or scary feelings or things that we don't always see success as something to prepare ourselves for, or I would say like a
Mhm.
sincere compliment as something to prepare yourself for. We're ready to brace ourselves
Yep.
almost for the hard stuff that sometimes we can almost feel blindsided by someone
Yeah.
saying that I believe in you, especially in a way that you don't expect from a person that you admire. And in that way, I really see that and how accepting being seen in that light is it's its own
It is.
vulnerable
And
act.
the other part of that too is
Yeah.
the whole imposter syndrome that I had up until that point, coming in from a different environment. So to hear that from her, it was especially impactful, especially.
In so many ways, that is what happened in May. It was like, what am I doing on that? What am I doing on that list? And also letting yourself be seen. Letting yourself be seen is bold and it's even if it's something you want, it can be scary, but it sounds like since that time, you've let yourself integrate and take that in and move forward, what I would say with a really beautiful balance of confidence and humility. You wear both really well. So thank you for that answer. I love that each moment is different, but there's something just so true and right about what you shared. Thank you so much for your time, Asia. Thank you for being here again. And congratulations to all your success. Truly, I'm so excited to just see what continues to evolve for you. And now that we've put it out into the world, I'm really excited about no pressure, obviously, but I'm very excited about whatever book you might be making. all of the ways for people to connect with all the resources we've shared and ways that they can connect with you. They'll all be linked in the show notes as well.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah, thank you
thank you
so
so
much
much.
for having me. This was fantastic and fun.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Don't Cut Your Own Bangs. I hope that you enjoyed listening because I thoroughly enjoyed making it. Anytime I get to sit down and engage with Asia, it's such a gift, and the best things in life are shared. So the fact that I get to share it with you just makes it all the more sweet and enjoyable for me. Thank you for being here. I hope that you enjoyed it. I absolutely adored this conversation. Make sure before you hop off, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your engagement with the podcast helps it grow. Whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're catching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen, click subscribe, click follow. It'll make your life a little easier because you never have to hunt to find this content because there's always going to be more coming. And then it also helps the podcast grow. Also, if you've got a question, hit me up. Send me an email at danielle@danielleireland.com, subject line bangs. If there's a question about this episode you want to dive into a little deeper, or if you're curious about something we could talk about in a future solo cast, the answer is yes, we can. Hit me up. I would love to hear from you. And what else? Oh, yes, yes. I talk all the time. If you've been listening to the podcast in various episodes, I talk all the time about making space for big feelings. And there is almost no other place I like doing that more than journaling. So a link in the show notes to the treasured journal. If you have ever thought about journaling but didn't know how to pick it up, or if you had that process going for a while but you abandoned it and you're like, I just want to find a refreshed way of approaching it, you probably want to consider grabbing a copy of the treasured journal. You can also get a companion meditation guide with the journal that just really adds to the self-discovery, self-exploration process. I also have my children's book, Wrestling a Walrus, which we touched on a little bit in the episode. But I'm trying to also honor your time and not cram and fill these episodes with so many ads, and wanting to just remind you that these products are out there. They mean a lot. And I felt really fueled in the process of making them because I believe in them and I believe in the value that they offer. So I want to make space and time for them here. And I'm trying to explore new and potentially better ways to do that, that honors you and honors me. The Wrestling a Walrus for Little People with Big Feelings is another great resource. You can grab it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. And if you forget, you always have those fancy show notes. I think that's it. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you and I look forward to catching you next time. Hope you have a wonderful day.